I'm honored. Wow. Let's see. Where to begin? Well, as some of you may recall, those that I guess were here the last time, I think that was back in June, we discussed a lot of things. And one of those things in particular, the last time, again, was dealing with language, the many forms of language, or the loom of language, and the quote-unquote molecular biographical sciences of language, for which we covered dealing with those languages, specifically decoding a lot of information, because, as you know, a lot of what you see and read is encrypted and encoded. And I'm not going to spend too much time on that today because, of course, that was the last time. However, just to, I guess, kind of bring people up to speed, and in dealing with the science of decoding information, we covered a science known as lexigramming, which, of course, then evolved into helixogramming, which is the upward spiral of, how can I say, tapping into areas of anagrammatical writing, etymology, the root of words, okay, which this is what helixogramming is. Now, some of you may have dealt with, etymology by itself, or you may have dealt with anagrammatical writing by itself. You may have dealt with phonetics by itself. However, helixogramming is a combination of all of the above. As I said, symbiology as well, geometry, runeology, because we covered the runes, for those of you who remember the last time, which is actually a form of, or originally stemmed from the hieroglyphs, all right? And we also covered areas, of course, of cryptography, which, of course, deals with decoding. Now, yes, to take it to the next level, we're going to be dealing with, of course, again, words, but we're going to be dealing with the physics of words, or we'll say the quantum physics of words. So that takes us into the area of magic, or at least what some people call magic. For starters, when we talk about magic, we talk about individuals like, for example, Merlin, who, was famous during the so-called time of King Arthur, okay? But before I deal with that exactly, I'm just going to, well, one thing you must know about me, and for those who have been here before, I jump all over the place. There is really no sequence until, I guess, the middle or the end of the lecture in terms of the connections. So, at that point, you'll begin to see all of the connections, what goes where and what goes, in each place or category. So anyway, to start, we're looking at words, which words are comprised of what they call characters, right? Okay? And characters can be many things. For example, let's just say I'm a director, and, I'm directing a play. Now, while I'm directing that play, I have to have a group of people who are called what? Exactly. Which is, well, actually, individually they're called characters, but collectively they're called what? A cast. Exactly. Which takes you into the area of a monopoly system that was going back to ancient Kemet and even other civilizations, where there were a group of individuals who kept information to themselves, which were considered to be a priestly caste system, if you will, okay? And dealing with that, you're looking at, for example, the caste system that dealt with languages. So there were certain languages and certain things that were undisclosed to the general public or the layman. Now, that we're dealing with characters, again, characters consist of, I guess you could say, to form words, what do you use? Yeah, which are called what? Okay. They're called alphabets, but they're called letters, right? Which letters form what? Okay, what else do they form? Very good, words, exactly. And hence, in order to form words, what do? Somebody said it. What's that? You put them together, but what do? You say them, but what else do you do? What's the first thing they do when you go to school? You learn how to do what? Okay, but then when you learn your alphabet and you start to put together words, you have to do what to put the words together? Yeah, which eventually, yes, phonics too, but eventually, yes, you learn syllable writing, which of course, you know, the language we deal with or the dialect we deal with is a form of syllable writing. Very good. And you learn how to spell, right? Very good. Now that you learn how to spell and that we talked about briefly, or I mentioned briefly, I said King Arthur and I said Merlin. Now, what did Merlin do? He was a magician that did what? He cast spells, right? Very good. And in order to cast his spells, what did he use? He used a wand, right? So, again, this goes back into the science of phonetics, lexigramming, and anagrammatical writing of sorts, which word is also wand, right? Because, again, the consonants are interchangeable, and the vowels, okay? The vowels and the consonants are interchangeable, but again, as we said before, you have to know when they're interchangeable or when it applies. So, now that we understand that the word is, in fact, the wand, and it is how you use the wand, or the word in this case, that is most instrumental in bringing about whatever spell it is you are trying to what? Cast. Very good. Okay. Now that we understand that, that takes us into, as we said, magic, or form of magic, or what some believe to be magic, which what is associated with magic in today's day and age, and even throughout the last millennium? The millennial group, or the millennium group, right? But, which is the occult, what they call the occult sciences, right? And in dealing with the occult sciences, and magic, as it were, and words, you're also dealing with the sacred wheel. All right? The sacred wheel is also known as the tarot, as in the tarot cards. Why is that? Because I know I've written all over the board like I've already given the lecture, but anyway, the sacred wheel is the rotor, okay? Which actually is T-A-R-O, right? Which is tarot, right? But you don't need really the T because the T is basically silent, right? which is also, as you know, ROTA, right? Which, interestingly enough, which way does it go? You said it goes counterclockwise? No, it's clockwise. I mean, we know the whole thing about time and how it's been mixed up and, you know, well, it's backwards. So, that it goes clockwise in the direction of the spiral, all right, even though we know that in our time, or at least what they call time, it goes in the right-handed coil, or corkscrew coil. And what we're dealing with and what we're learning how to do through all of these particular things is actually reversing it, okay? And in reversing it, one has to begin to understand the essential particles in which it is made up of, okay? Which eventually takes you into physics, quantum physics, particle physics, elementary particles, and so forth, okay? Which you've heard for a number of years from the time of Einstein, even before, and thereafter, you know, individuals are talking about this stuff like it's, you know, too difficult to understand, you know, for the average person. When, you know, it's really not all that. It's very, very simple, okay? But anyway, before I go any further, getting back to the tarot, or the rotor, as it were, which, of course, is a sacred wheel, which, of course, goes back to, as I said, magic, Merlin, the wand. There are sacred words that are also used within that wheel, right? The sacred words are, well, one of many. But the one in particular that I'm concerned with right now is this one, what they call the Tetragrammaton, okay? Which, of course, tetra, dealing with what? Four sides, as in the case of your four letters, as in the case of the cross, so-called cross, okay? Which, of course, if you turn it sideways, you have the X, which, of course, is represents the sacred wheel. And within the center of that wheel, you have the id, or yad, sound, okay, which basically represents the dot, or the principle that does not move. It doesn't really go anywhere. It stays right there, okay? But like I said, we're dealing with the four sides, excuse me, dealing with the four sides. We're also dealing with a pyramid of sorts, right? Now, within this pyramid, or cross, or X, whichever angle you're standing at, or looking at it, you have something that happens in between, right? This takes us into the areas of science of the pyramids and so forth and so on. I know I'm sounding like very blasé about a lot of this, but you have to forgive me. Okay, so we said that this is directly connected to the Tetragrammaton, okay, for which each one of the letters represent, of course, angles within shapes, okay, which of course deals with geometry, or a form or a type of geometry. And they are also referred to as fire letters, okay, or like what they call fire letter geometries. And each one of the fire letter geometries, okay, help to shape creation between the octaves of sound and the powers of light, okay? Because in order to understand what this is and how it works and what happens in between, you have to begin to understand light, okay? I hear a lot of people talk about sound and vibrations and this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. But it's important to comprehend or understand what light is and how it works, okay? And in order to really begin to understand how it works, you have to then get into an area that most generally do not cover or do not touch. For whatever reasons, I don't know. Okay? But the important thing is that we will be delving into that today or right now. Okay? Now, within each one of these sides, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, which are also quadrants, or quadrants, right? Quad 4. Remember algebra? Okay? For which each one represents something that takes place or occurs or happens within the universe, okay? Which deals with interaction. You have fundamental interactions that happen or that occur, okay? 4 fundamental interactions, okay? You have electromagnetic interaction, gravitational interaction, weak and strong interaction, all right? For which what they call the geocubic matrix is responsible for those interactions, which I'll get into the geocubic matrix a little later. However, the 4 interactions, like I said, gravitational interaction, basically is an attractive one, okay? And the attractive interaction is one that on an atomic level, it is negligibly weak or very weak. But on a cosmological scale, as we know, it is very, very strong for the simple reason that it holds the components of the universe together, right? Very good. So that takes us into from gravitational to electromagnetic interaction, okay, which basically is responsible for, if you will, the forces between atomic structure. It is also responsible for chemical interaction, as well as all electromagnetic phenomena. Okay? And what else can we say about electromagnetic interaction? It has some similarities to gravitational interaction, okay, in that it is attractive, much like gravitational interaction, but it is also repulsive. It can do one of 2 things. Why is that? Because within charged particles, all right, you have electromagnetic interaction, or electricity, right, that happens between molecules, cells, atoms, etc. Okay? Now, before I go any further, are you with me? Okay. Good. Now, I know you're probably saying, you know, this is like a little abstract, but you will again see where it fits and how it applies to the everyday. Okay? So now we have gravitational and we have electromagnetic. Now also within the electromagnetic interaction, some neutral particles, what they call neutral particles, which basically don't really have any charge per se. Some neutral particles also decay by electromagnetic interaction. Okay? As well, we can also see or recognize that it is a classified field of force, okay, that is described by what they call virtual photons actually, okay? And because in electromagnetic fields, the so-called quantum would be the photon, okay? In the, how can I say, in the gravitational field, the quantum would also be the graviton, okay? So in other words, quantum, not getting away from the interactions because it's all interrelated, but the quantum actually is not what most people say it is. Like when you think of quantum as in quantum leap, you know, it's like this guy took a leap from here across the street, you know, in like one leap. Actually, quantum happens in what they call excitation. It happens like that, okay? And it tends to happen within unit cubes, what they call unit cubes, all right? And the unit cubes are actually the cubes that hold spheres, okay? Which actually, this is how the universe began, or the creation of sorts, or whatever you want to call it, okay? So, we're still talking about electromagnetic interaction. Now, we go from electromagnetic interaction to strong interaction. Strong interaction is at least 100 times stronger than electromagnetic interaction. It is the strongest of 4, obviously, which is why it's called strong interaction. Okay? This stuff is like really simple, as you can see thus far. Okay? And strong interaction is basically that which occurs between hadrons. Okay? Now, before I go any further, I guess, hadrons are one of many subatomic particles. Not necessarily elementary particles, because elementary particles are particles that are, of course, a little smaller. Okay? However, you have many subatomic particles. All right? Hadrons are one of many that occur during strong interaction. Okay? It is also responsible for the forces between nucleons, which is another subatomic particle. Okay? And nucleons, or even before I go any further with nucleons, the strong interaction is also responsible for the great stability of the atomic nucleus, okay, because of the fact that its interactions are they're very strong, okay? And so it operates at very short range in order for it to be as strong as it is. It has to operate at very strong range within the atom, okay? Now, if you have, and I know that this was not recommended, but, you know, if you have any questions, you know, the important thing is that you're getting the information, and that's most important to me. So if you do have a question, without going out there in left field somewhere, you know what I mean, ask the question. Is there anyone who has a question about any of the above thus far? Okay. Mm-hmm. We're getting there. We're getting there. Very good. But anyway, as we said, we're talking about, the reason why I'm going through this step by step is so that you can see what each one does and where it occurs and how it occurs, okay? Because what happens is generally individuals who are scientists or claim to be or whatever, they'll just throw these words out and they'll never go into what they do exactly and how they work and how they function, okay? Yeah. They act together. I mean, it is, they act cohesively. However, because of the, how can I say, they're separate and apart, but yet they act cohesively, okay? However, most scientists today tend to look at them as just being separate, okay? Because, well, that's, you know, how they think. They deal in opposites. Everything is opposite. Everything is, you know, chaos to them. You know what I mean? Nothing is complementary. If you ask them, well, you know, what is the opposite of man? They'll say woman. You know, when in fact there's nothing, you know, they're not in opposition. They're complementary parts, okay? So, anyway, see, the thing is that straight up, I'm dealing with sound right reasoning, okay? That's all I'm dealing with. And this is actually a part of that, okay? Anyway, did I answer your question? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. To the nucleus? The nucleus of what? Uh-huh. Okay. Well, that depends, because there are other particles that are comprised of those particular particles as well. Like, for example, leptons, you know, carry neutrinos, tau particles, muons, okay, etc. Okay. Now what we're going to look at, you know, you wanted to add something else to that? Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, the strong interaction, just to take it a step further, and bear with me, just please bear with me. Strong interaction, just to take it a little further, is, like I said, it operates at very short distance and is described by what they call a virtual exchange of mesons. All right, and this is visualized by, or described by what they call a gauge theory of chromodynamics. Chromodynamics basically describe the interaction itself, the strong interaction, okay, which is what they call quantum chromodynamics, okay? Now, finally, you have the weak interaction, which is actually stronger than gravitational interaction, but it's at least 1,000 times weaker than electromagnetic interaction. And the weak interaction basically occurs between the leptons and hadrons, okay, and is also responsible for the decay of what they call beta decay and other particles, okay. Also, in the current model, if you will, the weak interaction is basically seen or visualized as a force, okay, that is mediated by a virtual exchange of particles, okay, which are then mediated by what they call intermediate vector bosons, okay, which of course are another form or another set of subatomic particles, okay. Now the reason why I went through that in each one of the particles is because one decays into the other, okay, which gets into the decomposition of particles, all right. And the decomposition basically is transforming or spontaneous transformation of one particle into another, okay? Like you have a radioactive nuclei that transforms into a daughter nuclei, which may or may not be radioactive per se, okay, because it has emissions of photons, all right? Now, the other thing here is that, for example, let me just give you, I guess I can erase this part. So you can get a clearer picture of what's being said here. All right? You have hadrons, right? Which are also baryons, which decay into which decay into mesons. Okay, and the mesons carry three quarks. Okay. Okay. Contain three quarks. Now this decays into leptons, and photons. I'm sorry, I just got like an inspiration. Nah, it's like, because check this out. This is actually going to take us back to the Merlin thing, straight up. going to take us back to the Merlin thing. Okay. Now, the mesons, as I said, decay into leptons and photons. And if I'm going too fast at any point, just let me know. Yeah. The nucleon? Okay. The nucleon is basically the particle, if you will, for lack of a better term. It's a poor choice of words. But it is the particle that holds most of these together. Okay? Exactly. All right? But then I'm going to go past that. Okay? But anyway, you have the leptons and the photons, and they decay, or actually leptons, photons, or they're also referred to, or sometimes referred to as proton pairs. Okay? Which the proton pairs carry, proton pairs carry a quark and an antiquark. Okay? Carry quarks and antiquarks. So you can basically get an idea of how, each one works and what's connected with what. And just for the record, again, the leptons, as I said, contain what they call tau particles. Neutrinos. And electrons. Also muons, if you want to add that. Okay? Which actually, that's the true science of the Tao. The symbol, okay? That's what the Tao is. Deals with, particle physics. Okay? Of sorts, it does deal with that, sort of in an indirect way, okay? In an indirect way, okay? But there is a connection, okay? So you're not wrong at all, okay? I'm sorry, you had, okay, all right. Okay, so, which, by the way, just for the record, what do they call people who are considered to be insignificant when referring to, or how the elite might refer to the public or the masses? Very good, which is another subatomic particle. So actually, when they call you a peon or refer to you as a peon, it is quite significant because nothing else could be what it is without the peon. Okay? So, we're just putting things into their proper perspective. Okay, so then the peon is also pi, which actually, contact. Resistance is futile. Contact, which was the movie, I'm kind of jumping just for a minute, but I'm going back. Contact was a movie that came out, as you know, in July, Jodie Foster, et cetera, et cetera. Most people expected it to be much like Independence Day and, some of the, shoot 'em up, bang, bang kind of, E.T. movies or what have you. However, it wasn't like that, and a lot of people were quite disappointed and didn't stay in the movies too long, but quite simply because it was for the individuals who are really on this level. Okay? Which again goes back to your Mark Twain twin reflections. Okay? You're getting one side, they're getting another. Or what they call el-haq, as in el-huckleberry fin. El-haq is the reality in the Arabic. All right? All right? So, anyway, in the movie, they were passing certain messages back and forth, blah, 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 blah. And basically, which wasn't Carl Sagan involved in that somehow or another? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Okay, very good. So anyway, it was basically tactical conversation. All right? Tactical conversation, which also dealt with a particular type of connection, which the connection at that point was completion. Completion is also what? In school, you learn this. Okay? However, pi isn't it complete? Okay, very good. Now, also, what lets you know that was the word itself. How is that? The word lets you know that it was complete because, let me just erase this. Here we go. Contact. Boom. Bam. 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 That was the ancient way of writing pi. You know what I mean? I don't know where that came into the picture. All right? But anyway, that's what that is. And that relates to this. Because it let them know that they were at another stage. All right? They had completed the last phase or stage, and now this is where they are. Okay? Okay? And actually, because I went there, I forgot about the other connection, but I'll give back there. But anyway, we talked about leptons, photons, proton pairs, how they break down. But also, like I said, they're all a part of another so-called subatomic particle, all right? The thing that glues everything together, and it's not the nucleon. I mean, it plays a part in there, and it glues something, you know, or a group of particles. However, beyond that goes back to what you had mentioned, which are tachyons. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I'm getting to that. Well, actually, just for you right now, I'll go there. Okay? Now, the first one, as we said, goes from the weakest to the strongest. The weakest is gravitational, right? I'll just write G. And then next, we have what? From gravitational, we have the weak interaction, right? Then we have electromagnetic interaction. Then we have strong interaction. There you go. Okay? Very good. What was I saying right before that? Oh, yes, tachyons, yes. Forgive me. I'm just out there, kind of. But anyway, yeah, so we have tachyons, which actually are considered to be the glue of the universe. They hold everything together. Why is that? Because even that you're dealing with subatomic particles, like hadrons, mesons, leptons, muons, blah, 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 okay? And, of course, quarks, right, and antiquarks, which actually, they're held together by gluons, okay, which are, they're considered to be massless particles because of the fact that they don't really have any charge. And the gluons are generally and sometimes described within a diagram called the Feynman diagram, all right, which kind of looks something like this. And then you have the squiggly lines in between, which actually are the exchange of photons, all right? And then on each side, you have the disbursement of electrons, okay? So, anyway, damn, what was I saying? I'm sorry, I just like totally just went out. But, oh, tachyons, thank you. But the tachyons, as I said, basically hold everything together. They're considered to be the glue of the universe. And they pass through and can pass through any kind of matter, okay? Fields, matter, etc. Okay, whereas the other particles can't. Okay, and this goes back to this. All right, why is that? Because you have. I got to write this somewhere else. I'm going to erase a lot of this. Is that cool? Okay. Not that you could really make out what it was, because it's like all kind of crammed together, but anyway. Okay, goes back to that, which of course takes you into dun, 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 your pyramids, right? Okay, and of course, you know, you have the one underneath that. Okay, so you have within the pyramid, you have this. What is this supposed to be? Yeah, what is it supposed to be? Anyway, it is the, yes, it is the, I erased it, it was up here, but it represents the, okay, or your wand again. Well, Brother Man's gone, but anyway, yeah, that was really for him, because I know he's like into the wand thing. But anyway, that's what it represents. Why is that? Because the staff of Tahuti, or Tahuti, or Thoth, or Thoth, you have to forgive me because, you know, I love to play with words. So anyway, that's what it represents, okay? Then it also deals with, or specifically, or more specifically deals with, the degree of light in the pyramid, which also represents the degree of light within the body, okay? Now, at each end, you have, which, they're spirals of sorts, yes. Yeah, I guess you could say they're spirals. But they're also electron spirals, okay? And of course, the electron spirals, when fusing, well, first, before I go any further, the bottom pyramid, I'm kind of dulling this out for the simple reason that it deals with reflection, okay? Deals with, well, they both, for the most part, deal with ionization, right? Why am I writing with this like that? Okay. Deal with ionization. And, which we're going to get into that in a minute. That's going to be really, really interesting. Okay, they both deal with ionization. And okay, the electrons spiral, and oh, yes, yes, yes. And which eventually, what happens is that when light is refocused, it kind of does this. Which, of course, that's how the light emanates from the pyramid at that point, or is emitted from the pyramid. Which, again, of course, is your staff here, okay? So that's really the column of light that goes up like that, which, of course, happens within the body. This is also considered to be your 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 2 tenaries, or tenaries, which then become your septenary. Okay? And in between